You're a SaaS founder, you've built something solid, but growth still feels harder than it should. Most SaaS companies don't fail because of bad tech. They fail because they've never become a must-have to the right customer. This podcast is here to change that. I'm Ton Dobbe, and this is the Remarkable SaaS Podcast. Every week I talk to founders in the trenches, facing friction, making bold moves, and building companies that last. We dig into real choices around focus, positioning, customer pool, team alignment, the things that separate forgettable software from the ones that people can't live without. No hype, no hacks. Just honest conversations to help you build something that people would miss if it was gone. If your SaaS should be indispensable but isn't yet, this is your podcast. Let's get into it. The guest on the podcast this week is Georgi Petrov, CEO of Uxify.
Most of the high leverage decisions which we made turn out to be not so good decisions. Ultimately, we find somewhere in the middle we found our ground, but we continue optimizing. For example, not having a support team or having a very small support team sounds like a high leverage decision, but that's ultimately bad because customers need 24/7 support and so on. So ultimately expand the support team, but then we do it in a more smart way. And that's how we end up. I mean, if we're super able to leverage a lot, very likely we can achieve much more than 50%, but I think you end up somewhere around 50% ultimately.
This is Georgi. We dig into why he treats profit as a starting point and not as a destination, and how that one belief shaped 4 companies and 2 exits. You'll hear what happens when you refuse to add headcount, resist building a sales team, and still charge above your competition. The conversation reveals what changes when you stop aiming for 20% EBITDA and start building for 50%. Well, hi, Georgi. Thank you for making the time available today and being the guest on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's this started from it's really how networks are, right? I mean, I did my interview with Panos from LearnWorld, and I asked him, okay, would there be anyone that you would recommend to be on this podcast? And he instantly mentioned you. And when I started reading your profile, I absolutely could imagine why he would say something like that, because you've been founding 4 companies in 15 years. You had 2 exits. 1 exit, actually, I know the company of because they were on the podcast as well. So there's so many things I want to explore today. Before we start talking about the company and all your entrepreneurial experiences, what drives you? What do you get energy from as an entrepreneur?
It's a very good question, and thanks for asking, because I think every entrepreneur, including me, has something very special about when you wake up and about how do you see your day moving forward in terms of value creation. And I already had 2 exits together with my partner, Mikhail, and we've often questioned ourselves, what drives us do whatever we do. And, after the first exit, it was life-changing event. And we, at some point, started questioning, okay, let's retire, let's do something else, let's try different industries and things like this. So we had some room to explore different drives, but ultimately we rediscovered the drive, what drives me to wake up. And that's the desire to create something useful for someone else around the world, in terms of the tool that will do a great job for someone else, and then someone else will say, great, you help me. That's what drives me.
Yeah. Exactly. What I hear between the lines here is that you, and I also saw a quote somewhere in a paper that you never planned your exits.
That's right.
And it wouldn't be something to do for, but what you just said is resonating here. You actually measure your success by the value you help create others. You help others create.
That's right. That's what made me proud. And that's how I think of being useful to other people. I mean, it's first having this useful tool that we create to some other people, and then around it, we build a business, right? It's
exactly. And
Yeah.
it's one that actually helps the other. Because if you do it the other way around, it will never help. Now, it's actually the sort of the founding principle behind writing my book, The Remarkable Effect. Because if something isn't, like you say, useful or valuable to people, and it actually surprises them in terms of what it actually does for them and the impact it has on them, they'll start talking about it. And then if you do that well and they get value from it that they are proud of, they'll start talking about it to others, and that becomes your flywheel for a good business. That potentially will exit, and it will exit in the right way, but potentially it will never exit, and you have a fantastic business for life, because that flywheel is about positivism. So like difficult word for me as a Dutch guy. So yeah, perfect bridge to your to the company then. You started Uxify in 2024.
Yep.
What's the big idea behind that business? What was a problem that you saw that needed a useful solution?
Right. So let me take a step back by saying that before Uxify, we had a NitroPack, and actually Uxify is a carve out of NitroPack as part of the deal. So NitroPack got acquired by WP Engine, and within NitroPack, we developed this new technology, this new vision, which basically was, what is a faster web? What is a better web? And we created around the idea of having user level optimizations. User level optimizations mean that you, as a user, by knowing what is your interest, by knowing what is your device capability, by knowing what are your internet restrictions and so on, to optimize the content in a way that you consume it still in a seamless way, like other people do, with more like better internet, for example, or with more capabilities. And this type of
Wow.
user level optimization for us got like super interesting idea how to implement and how to do it. And we started experimenting with different technologies. And one of them was Google Speculation Rules API, which at that point they were like beta testing it with different companies, and we were one of the early testers of the technology. We tested, provided a lot of data, exchanged ideas, and like happily at that point in 2024, we were even mentioned on their Google I/O in California, like as one of the early adopters of the technology. So we continued
Yeah.
building up to a point where we created Uxify as part of the deal, and we got the people who were involved in NitroPack out of NitroPack as part of the deal and put them in Uxify. And with this great team, now we have Uxify.
Good. So yeah, you already mentioned the exit of your previous company to WP Engine. I had the founder on the podcast a while ago, Jason Cohen. Big fan of him, and we still have good contact on that. But it's always interesting how this goes, right? You've been acquired, become part of a far larger organization, and then if you can then at some point go and split up it again on good terms and start a new company, that's it's a benefit for everybody. Um, the question then, in terms of this started early days and it started to grow, and at some point you decided, okay, it's a company on its own right. Um, what do you believe has been an early decision that appears to be very relevant or very important for where you are today with this company? Because it's 2 years down the road, and of course, what I just heard is it started earlier on. But what has been something that's fundamental to this business for it to perform like it does today?
For us, fundamental decision was to focus on performance and general friction removal of websites, because we treat performance as a friction, because it's an issue only if somebody struggles with performance, right? So for us, the biggest decision was to start looking at web performance from a business standpoint. So we look from like conversion standpoint, from like engagement standpoint, do actually people who perform who have like lower performance have any business impact on your bottom line? And we show this data first, and in our solution, we are very focused on the meaning of performance, and that was the core solution. Because otherwise, there might not be real need to invest in performance if that's not the case. Yeah, that's our
Yeah.
understanding. Yeah.
So that makes me wonder actually, because I saw a couple of quotes from, let me see, who was it? Um, yeah, Ray-Ban.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it says, okay, they saw 156% increase in desktop conversions, 101% on mobile, and 13% reduction in exit rates. So my question at the end is, okay, who do you sell this to? Is this to an individual that has a bad internet connection? Or do you sell it to a company that benefits from every user having the best possible performance on their website?
We sell it to a company because in our case, it's very easy to connect to their like business function and to their numbers, and first show what is the friction impact of all their small frictions that you have on the website
Yeah.
to their conversion, to their sign up rate, to their contact us, or whatever the business function of the website is. So first we show this data, and
Yeah.
second we have automated tools like navigation AI and IMprove, which are able to improve the navigations and the clicks and different types of friction moments to remove them automatically for you. That's the whole.
Ah, okay. Yeah, so it's a B2B play. And now I understand indeed
It is.
what is
Yeah,
the fundamental value, because it's not about the speed that people get, but it's contributing to a lot better performance of the company. So
that's right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
which you would normally not connect like that. So now, talking about then you exit from you first saw your first company to that was the second exit to WP Engine. Then you carve out. You decide to kind of go on your own. Um, what has been the hardest nut to crack when it comes to user adoption? Because I mean you're then starting from scratch again. How did you start?
Yeah, we started from scratch, and for us, the we had some moment on the user adoption where we initially understood that, all right, it might not be convincing enough to tell people read these marketing articles and read these case studies and go ahead and buy our product. That's why we went all in on actually building up on our product to first measure the friction moments, identify the revenue that is being left on the table, and then actually prove why you need our solution. That's will help our user adoption.
Yeah, exactly. So it's indeed it's so many companies. This is a really valuable lesson. So many companies, if you then go to the website and they would have a similar product than you, they would say, okay, it's twice as fast.
Yeah,
And then it's like, but I cannot, yeah, twice as fast, so what? But if you then connect the dots and say, okay, well, because of the things we did, we actually, can guarantee business outcomes that do make sense to you. And then here's how we do it by making things faster. That's a completely different story at the end. I love that. I love that connection there.
it's very interesting because different websites have different audiences, and one thing we found is that the different audiences have different patience limits in terms of
Mm.
how fast is fast enough. And we see websites, for example, where 2.5 seconds is totally okay as a wait time. And there is no change under 2.5 seconds in terms of how they behave on the journey, on the way to the checkout, on the way to the book a demo. They behave absolutely the same way. But there are websites where actually they're much more sensitive. These are typically like audience which browse from faster connections, better devices, which are very used to instant browsing. These will be the ones that will still have tolerance up to 1.5, 1.8, and then after that, they will start like dropping in terms of conversion rate. So it depends from site to site. I guess if you're the tax office, obviously people need to pay their taxes. You can afford even a 10 seconds of pay speed, right? Because ultimately you won't lose revenue, but that's not the case with the business.
Exactly. So what does that mean to the definition of your ICP, your ideal customer profile? What are the ones that you say, hey, this is the companies we are for, and possibly more important, what are the companies we are not for? We could possibly help, but we will say no to them.
Right. So we're truly for like online brands, website we have which have business function. So think of like checkouts, like e-commerce brand, think of like book a demo SaaS companies, think of like contact us, have a call with us with like professional website companies. They like if you have a website, if you're a website owner, like a brand, company, corporation, like the more volume you have in terms of like sessions, the better, because we use a lot of data and AI on the back to optimize. But if you have a business function, we can help you. And
Mm.
on the flip side, we cannot help websites. We cannot justify why you need to use us unless you need it for lifestyle reasons. You cannot justify why you need to use us if you don't make any money out of your website, if it's just out there sitting without any business function. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
But that's at the end also the right way to go about it, you know. There's a lot of companies that still try to sell you something. As long as you pay, we'll sell it.
Yeah.
But for you, it's more also about like that value that you want people to talk about, because that is your flywheel, you know. And if you can justify with proud and with um, yeah, in a confident way that this is a no-brainer, business will help happen by itself. So I like
Sure.
that. Let me see. You pointed out that it's at some point that this was all starting by an experiment or something that was embedded at Google, so it's relatively new technology. Um, I can imagine that well, things that when they get released, they're picked up, yeah, by other people as well. What are you doing specifically to keep your differentiation? Well, to protect your moat, by the way, in better words.
Well, we have two main like pillars in our case. First, one is innovation. It takes time to copy innovation, and we are used to be copied all the time with every company we've created in the past. So likely this will happen, and we're pretty fine with that. What we're doing this time different is that we have the data. We use a lot of data for this startup, and the product is built around data. So we need the data in order to basically provide the user level optimizations. We need the data in order to show you where you are actually losing money because of different types of frictions or disruptions for your users. So all this data is something that basically keeps our software like at like a more sticky place than the typical type of SaaS companies. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the data plays such an important one these days because
Yeah.
the more customers you get, the more transactions you go through your system, or the more yeah journeys go through your system, the more data you get, and the better you can start to optimize. And that is very hard to catch up with.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and that brings me to another point. I'm not sure how many customers you currently have today.
Currently, we're at late paid beta. So, I mean, we have not fully released. We're in early access, and we are scheduled to release in about 1 month. And we currently have about 120 customers, paying customers. Yeah.
120 paying customers. That is an important part. Well, yeah, talking about those first 100, so to say, what has been a lesson that you've learned there that you assumed was X, but it turned to be out completely different compared to like what you did before? Because of course you've been building companies before. What was different this time?
Different this time was that we started from the data part, and we thought that once we have the data and we just put it there and like put like tens of different dashboards, people will go crazy and they will be like, oh, I have this, I have that, and they'll just start exploring. When we gave these dashboards to our customers, like they were not super enthusiastic to self-explore, but once you point out to them different parts, like look at this, look at that, they were like going like super crazy, like, oh, that's amazing, I didn't know this and that. And then they like slowly started to track different metrics. But we learned that actually most of the people don't have the analytics mindset, and they just want a super simple number. So that's why we actually, all right, we kept everything in dashboards to deep dive into numbers, but we simplified a lot of things. We put colors, green, red, good, bad, and things like this in order to simplify the product. This is something we're doing for the first time. before release, and we're releasing, by the way, a much mature product because we already had the customers using it. And we have customers with like tens of websites each, so we have a lot of websites already. And some of the websites have pretty big traffic base, and as part of that, we also learn a lot, and we are kind of doing the not only an MVP, not only releasing like a prototype, we are releasing actually a mature product that is being used by customers. And that's the first time we're doing it. We've always released, to be honest, like speaking of the past is easy, but speaking from nowadays, we've released half-baked products, which work sometimes for some people, other people that they don't really work. And then we fix it on the way in the next, let's say 6 months to 1 year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Fail fast, right? That's the whole mantra there. But that's an interesting thing that you say there, that it's not the flashy dashboard that people want, because then they have to start analyzing it themselves and draw their own conclusions. You become more valuable to them if you draw the conclusions. Can that potentially mean that your dashboards will completely disappear and that you start, yeah, automatically tuning things for them based on what you see? So it's not that, okay, we give you the dashboards and the gears to manage it all, but we do it for you?
Yes, this is actually where our focus has been in the last few months. So we are simplifying a lot, first by actually showing you the conclusions and giving you very, very high level basic information, by actually showing the most important things, what's going on with our website, where is the friction, what is the friction, who is experiencing, what is the business impact on it. Then we have all this data, we put on top of it like our Uxi AI, which is like a agentic LLM. You basically go and chat like ChatGPT, but he knows everything about your website, right? So know all the data, like a engagement, session, conversions, experience, performance, you name it. Like it knows, like even about like how it relates to competitors, if some people are comparing to competitors. So we put all this data under the LLM, and then we have these agentic functions where we basically can optimize certain parts of the website in a like automated way. When you have the issue, it says, okay, you have this type of issue. Would you be okay to confirm that we can optimize it? Okay, yes, confirm. Let's go. That's it.
Yeah. Could it potentially be that your whole business model turns from, and the normal SaaS model? I mean, I'm not sure how you charge right now, but maybe to an outcome-based model whereby you get rewarded based on the impact you actually make?
Yeah, that's a big discussion which we had, the outcome-based model, and we tested it, by the way, with a few merchants, which we use us, but they didn't accept it in a very, like in a more, how to say, they didn't think it's like a superior model to charge with. Because outcome, what is outcome for us? For us, it would be, let's say, if we bring you like 1% more users to the checkout, that's an outcome, right? And it's very easy to justify. But when you talk to a merchant and tell him like, what if I bring you like 1% more? Would you give me like some chunk of it? They were like, no, we don't want to give any rev share, right? So it's a very tricky part of like, it feels like it's fair, but at the same time, they don't like it, the merchants.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, there's different ways to play around it at the end. What you can definitely do is, and I always talk about it, like where do you have pricing power over other options, and they realize that your solution gives them something that they cannot get from others. So there you have pricing power, and therefore people happily pay more than they would pay for something else. And of course, that's also something that you can optimize the business around. Which brings me to another thing that I read about you. I saw something around that you're a fan of bootstrapping companies.
That's right. Yeah.
And one of the things is that you target 50% EBITDA, which is high.
Yeah.
I mean, I come from the enterprise software world. At Unit 4, for example, prior to our to delisting, we were sort of hovering around 19-20% EBITDA. Becoming part of private equity, I think we drove it up to about 32-33%. 50 is rough. So how do you do that?
Well, first we prefer to work with smaller teams, which are like superheroes on its own. Like we basically, everyone from the team is very high ownership in terms of like product ownership. Everyone is like very good at what he does or she does. And like we basically like to work with A players, so you don't need to expand the team so much in cases like this. Or if you need an expansion, it's usually for a very specific role, like support role in the past, which is currently AI is helping us a lot as well in the support role. And
Yeah.
so first is like lean team. Second would be automations. We try to automate as much as possible, and that also saves a lot of costs.
Let me make a small interruption here. Georgi just made a critical remark that sets his approach apart from how most SaaS vendors think about scaling. Where most founders see profitability as a constraint on growth, Georgi treats it as a filter for every decision. He described how targeting 50% EBITDA forces you to hire differently, automate relentlessly, and question every cost that doesn't directly create value. The result is not a smaller company, it's a leaner one that competitors cannot replicate. And this is what remarkable SaaS companies do. They acknowledge they cannot please everyone. They focus on the essence, and lastly, they offer something valuable and desirable. Want to master these traits as well? Simply read my book. I've made the electronic version available for free. Just visit theremarkableeffect.com to grab your copy, and inspiration will spark within 10 minutes. Back to the interview. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You're looking for leverage.
Yeah, basically leverage.
Can you give an example of a decision that you made or didn't make because there wasn't enough leverage?
Well, most of the high leverage decisions like which we made turn out to be not so good decision. Ultimately, we find somewhere in the middle, we found our ground, but we continue optimizing. Like, for example, not having a support team or having a very small support team sounds like a high leverage decision, but that's ultimately bad because customers need 24/7 support and so on. So ultimately expand the support team, but then we do it in a more smart way. And that's how we end up. I mean, if we're super able to leverage a lot, very likely we can achieve much more than 50%, but I think you end up somewhere about 50% ultimately.
I mean, you keep cutting at the end. And I realize what you're doing here, and I've seen those movements as well. You know, you go sort of to the extreme, and then you sort of pull back until it's like the balance is right again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, talking about a metric in the business that have become very important for you in relation to that is, for example, ARR per employee, a metric that you follow, or is there maybe another one?
Yeah, per employee, we just follow it for entertainment purposes, but generally for the business, we follow ARR, the standard metrics like ARR, MRR, NRR, and like different type of expansions, churn, contraction, like the standard SaaS metrics. Of course, in the last 2 years, when the markets changed, we started tracking also profitability, which became a factor, and we ultimately realized that many of the principles which we believed in the past, even like in the like 5 years ago, which basically we always believed that one company should be profitable in order to be called a company, unless you have a very good reason to temporarily not be a profitable company. That's how we understand the business. And at some point, we were, to be honest, confused in 2018 and 19 and 20 when everyone around us was not like basically burning money, not profitable, and everyone of the investors like who we speak to was saying like, you are mismanaged company. Even we've heard, and it's like, what do you mean mismanaged company? Because you're profitable, this means that you don't know how to allocate your money properly, and things like this we kept hearing, and we're like, what we're doing wrong? And ultimately things changed, like the market's changed, and we realized, okay, we might be on the right side now.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, there's nothing wrong with profit, and I completely agree with you. I mean, if you aim for that's a profitable company, and have very good reasons to be not that profitable at some point in time, because of a major investment that you're possibly doing, that's the right model. But to burn and to say, hey, well, at some point in time we will be profitable, I think those times are gone right now, and I think everybody knows that. But 50%, like I said, it's steep, and yeah, that's an interesting thing in its own right. What fascinates me in this case, maybe you got an answer on that. A lot of companies cut their way to 50% or to 30% EBITDA. What are you doing in order to kind of get to that level of EBITDA by actually focusing on the upside, on the revenue side? Because I
Yes,
mean,
we
there's
are.
the rule of 40, the rule of 60.
Yeah. So we aim to have most of the revenue coming from self-service. So that's the first
Yeah.
thing, which is also kind of anti-pattern to all bigger companies where you basically start sales driven and you have like a lot of costs on the top before even like having the operational side of things. And having most of our revenue coming from self-service and still being not a cheap product, it's a combination where still people are paying you, okay, might not be that high what you're going to get from a sales-led approach, but still people will self-service themselves, pay you like not like some normal amount of money for that self-service because of the value you're bringing to them. And
Mhm. What are
that,
we talking about then? For example, an average subscription per month?
yeah. Well, so in the different companies, it was different. So right now in Uxify it would be about 150, uh, which will be a leverage service, self-service, which is distributed on average between free to cheap to more expensive, and then in the thousands. So like currently
Yeah.
as a new young product, just starting and just packaged, that's pretty okay. In the NitroPack world, things were different because there we operated in WordPress. WordPress is generally free, kind of to cheap platform in terms of software purchasing. And in there, we still operated in like a way above the averages of our competitors,
Yeah.
and still was on self-service basis. The thing with WordPress is that they have a volume, right? So they have like many thousands and hundreds of thousands website that can be potentially your customers.
Yeah.
And in that sense, the volume compensated for like the lower
Yeah.
from this perspective lower, but from WordPress perspective higher average price. Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah.
Interesting that you say that you're within the WordPress ecosystem. You still we're on the high end. So what do you think? What allowed you to do that? What made people be happy to pay, yeah, that extra
The
for those
product,
solutions?
the
Yeah.
product, because we basically just go and put a product on the shelf that just works and has innovation that is currently no other product has. So when we
Yeah.
launched NitroPack, for example, like all the performance optimizations products were single featured, and some of them were 2 to 3 features. So we basically ended up with releasing with seamless 5 feature product where you basically get automated CDN, automated image optimization, automated fonts optimization, and cache solution at all. So we click a button, everything starts working together, and people are like, "Wow, this just works. I don't need to
Yeah.
hunt and go around and find different solutions, try to connect them and things like this." So that's how.
Interesting how you talk about that. 5 feature solution.
Yeah.
Now, okay, well, talking about the new company then, Uxify, because my world is always in the sales-led software world, whereby product is actually yeah, complex enough to have to be sold through a sales team. But I realize, of course, also there's the PLG motion. But I see a lot of PLG type companies at some point still transfer part of their business and later on a growing part of their business to be sales-led. At what point do you think this is also going to be required for your company?
Um, it will be required at the point where we first see a good fit for, let's say, mid-market. We need to talk at least to mid-market for self-led
Yeah,
solution. And second, you cannot service it in a sales-assisted manner, because still people who are sales-led can be accommodated in a, let's say, more lean way through a sales-assisted method. And that's the point where we're thinking, and of course, if things also not go in the way we projected with the self-service, that's also another way to go. But
Yeah.
like generally, we try to be lean on that side and to try to be sales assisted at most, and not do like aggressive sales and not do like human effort in order to sell our product, rather than
Yeah.
we rely on the product itself, so people adopt it, liked it, agencies they recommend it, and this is how usually our network of growth works.
Okay. Interesting. Because I'm currently writing an essay on direct versus indirect. Because it typically always starts direct, and at some point you come to a point where you say, "Hey, in order for us to make the next leap, it has to go indirect." So you started that indirect model from the start.
Yes,
What have you learned over the time to make indirect work for you?
the product needs to be great. I mean, you need to have a super interesting, sharp, and good product so that people like it and they tell their friends and they share, and that's the only requirement which you need to cover in order to start. And then you need some online marketing, and then you need some partnerships, and then you need some affiliates, and still people need to find you online, right?
Yeah.
And they need to demo, and they need to test and things like this. You need to have a free plan, and that's what made it possible. But if I can bring it back, like probably 14 years ago when we actually started, at that point, we were just builders and we didn't have a choice because we were in Bulgaria. We didn't know how to sell in the US, and we didn't know have the people, and like the technology also was not there in terms of like video calls and things like this, where nowadays super normal to sell over video call. Yeah. And so the only option we had to succeed is just to build a product that someone likes, right? So
But the issue at the end is that they don't use the product themselves. You
yeah,
know, they are sort of the middleman, and they have to, yeah, you have to enable them in order to be successful, yeah, making a living out of your product.
that's right. Yeah, very, very typical scenarios, like they take our product and they show it to their customers, clients. In that case, it might be agencies, so on. So they like it or not. They give us feedback. They were very vocal. And yeah, but moving forward to today, we really understand the sales-led approach as well.
Yeah.
We tried it; it worked well for us. We just think it will be a mistake if we focus on sales-led now, and might focus in 1 year, 2 years, and
Yeah.
now we can expand. Yeah,
Understand that. Understand that.
yeah,
Looking at the time, I want to ask you two more questions. Maybe not about this company yet, because you're in the, yeah, you got 120 customers. Things are building up right now, but primarily, of course, also the company that you did before, the one that you possibly sold to a WP Engine, because that was really about scale, about a lot of users and so on. What is the most counterintuitive lessons that you learned scaling a software business?
The most counterintuitive lesson is usually that putting more people means more productivity.
Yeah.
One of the most problematic situations for scaling. And yeah, the choice of partners is also very important on the top side. Like sometimes you see partners, like in our case with NitroPack, was like we see great partners with millions of websites, but they can't be monetized, right? So it's super counterintuitive to think like if somebody has a million websites like under their belt, they will be a great partner. And then you have like somebody else with like 10,000 websites and they like convert much more than the one with 1 million websites. So it pretty much depends what is your audience and like what is your fit in product fit, market fit in that situation. So
Is,
that's
is for example, that you say that like the big gorilla that has all these websites and that you want to be your partner because, yeah, that's of course a gold mine,
yeah.
versus the other one that is maybe much smaller. I mean, 10,000 websites is still big. But has it got to do again with this whole with the value of, okay, the one you want to be a partner, you look at it from a greedy perspective, and the other one, it works because for them you deliver a value that they cannot achieve on their own.
Yeah, that's right. And then very often the smaller players tend to be more like to have more active audience, like like their customers to have a specific reason why they're there. They have very high trust and things like this, where the big players are kind of everyday situation where people are bombarded with different offers and everything, so they don't really play well with integration. So it's very case by basis, but this is one of the counterintuitive experiences which we had
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that anecdote because it's a real one. And we
Yeah.
always think, okay, this is a big TAM, so we have to, if we just get 2% or 3% of that, then we'll fly. But it's not about that. You know, the other side needs to take your product by the hand. For them, it needs to be a no-brainer to take it with them, and it
Yeah.
needs to open doors that they cannot open by themselves. But there's so much more to that. Um, yeah, I mean, out of the 15 years of entrepreneurship, starting 4 companies, exiting 2, what is a big lesson that you learned that you still benefit from today? It's one that you say, hey, yeah, this is almost, I would paint a tile on the wall from it. It's-
I would say focus.
yeah,
And the focus that has been more relevant over the last few years with the new way of building things, with the thousands of AI tools that bombard you all around, with thousands of advice that you get from everyone and so on. So there's a lot of noise, and focus is something that is basically prerequisite to deliver a product in 2026. And yeah, that's what I'll say is.
can you give an example of one, yeah, like where you thought you were focused, but at the end you were not, and by adjusting it, helped to get the thing done?
Right. So good example would be when we started SMS Bump. We initially thought that we can be SMS marketing solution for any platform, which didn't play well. And we were like, okay, somebody called from this platform, somebody from this platform. So we had to take the hard decision to focus only on Shopify,
Yeah,
because this is where we saw the best position. And
yeah.
that's how focus helped us.
But good that you mention it. It's for that very reason. It's trade number 1 in my book. You know, remarkable software companies acknowledge that they cannot please everyone, and although you want to and possibly could
That's
could
right.
help anyone, it's not a good decision. So it's
Right. Yeah.
yeah. Well, thanks
Yeah.
for that. Yeah. Final question then. A do and a don't. If you would, based on all your experience, have to advise other software entrepreneurs who are building a company or planning a shift, what would be a don't and what would be a do that you'd yeah, give them based on what you've done yourself?
Don't fundraise if you don't need to, and do focus on the product.
Yeah. Any yeah argument with that?
Yeah, like very often I see entrepreneurs starting building a product, but if you look where their time goes, it goes to any other type of different activities, different than building the product itself. And if you're like going to be building the product, you should be building a product, not fundraising. Fundraising takes time, right? And unless you have a very pressing need to fundraise, like you can always postpone it for a later moment, and it will be even a better situation for you, because in this case you have might have potentially a working product, right, which is much easier to fundraise at that point. And yeah, other activities like legalities, formalities, like company formations and long-term planning and things like this, all this should be removed from the building process, right? You need to build a product, and that's
Exactly.
it. Yeah, that's
Perfect. Well, that's wise advice.
yeah.
Wise advice from someone that has started many businesses in the meantime and succeeded with it, and also knows what not to do. But thanks for that. Thanks for sharing the wisdom. We could talk for hours more. Where can people go to find out more about Uxify or to say hi to you?
Yeah, uxify.com or georgi@uxify.com is my email address.
Good. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Pleasure speaking. Thank you so much, Tom.
And this wraps up my conversation with Georgi Petrov, CEO of Uxify. If you got value from this episode, please share it with other SaaS founders who need to hear this as well. And if you got 10 seconds, a quick rating or review on Apple Podcasts will help more people to find these conversations. Thank you for listening to the Remarkable SaaS podcast. If you want more insights like this, subscribe to my daily email, Espresso with Ton. It's a 2-minute shot of clarity for SaaS founders who want to create pull, not push. You can sign up, along with getting my book, at valueinspiration.com. See you in the next episode.